It's a question that we get a lot. Actually, roughly the question is follows the form of, I've been studying for, I've been scoring in the exact same range for the last 5 weeks, and my scores aren't moving, and what do I do if I'm not improving? Is the question. It's a really common question, and I have some thoughts about that. My first thought is, and this is super unsatisfying for people to hear, but my first hypothesis is that it's still just a small sample size. So if you think you're not improving over the past 5 weeks, it's not that you're not improving, it's just that your improvement hasn't yet been reflected in that small sample of the last 5 weeks. The short run is a lot longer than you guys think it is. You can't have done more than like 10 tests in the last 5 weeks, and 10 tests is still a pretty damn small sample, really. So if you feel like you're learning, you are. And if your scores aren't yet reflecting that learning, then it's probably just right around the corner for you. And what you really have to do is just be patient. I don't I just don't think that 10 tests even is really enough data to make any conclusions about you've hit some sort of a plateau. So I would prefer that instead you ask a different, more specific question. I don't, why aren't my scores improving is just not really a question that we can help you with. Also, another similar related question that people ask a lot is, what do I do if I'm in the 160s, but I'm stuck there and I want to keep improving? Like, what types of, what tips do you want to give a student in the 160s to improve? And I really would try to encourage you to, instead of asking that question, I want you to ask a more specific question about an actual LSAT question you missed. The reason why scores aren't improving is because you keep missing questions. So the better question to ask is just, hey, this particular question right here, why is the answer B? I thought the answer was D. Here's my rationale for that. Why am I missing this question? And those are the types of questions that really do lead to improvement. They're also the types of questions that allow your teacher to help you. Because if I had tips about what to do when you're in the 160s and you want to improve, I would just have given you those tips already. My response is always, well, show me the questions you're missing. Let's talk about the exact mistakes that you're making. And if you show me mistakes you're making, then I can help you understand conceptually why the right answers are right and why the wrong answers are wrong. So I would just double down on this process of do questions, do tests, make mistakes, and then learn as much as you can from those mistakes. Because the truth is, your individual mistakes aren't going to lie. Your actual mistakes are going to tell you exactly what you need to work on. The test does not hide anything. You do the test, you miss some questions, and the ones you missed, yeah, that's your problem. Those are the points you lost. So the points you lost, let's talk about why you lost those points. Instead of just looking at the score at the end, I just can't really do that much from your score. When you're reviewing, and if you feel like you've missed a question where you got caught up, a lot of times students think they got too caught up in the wording and didn't pick a correct answer because they got too caught up in the wording. I'm going to promise you that there is not any such thing as got too caught up in the wording. Getting too caught up in the wording is exactly what lawyers do. And that's exactly the entire point of the LSAT, is that you needed to be caught up in that wording, because that's what we're testing basically, is your ability to do battle with words. So when you're looking at mistakes and you didn't pick the correct answer because you had a quibble with the correct answer, I would encourage you to remember that you made 2 mistakes on that question that you missed, not just one. So students sometimes will obsess about one or the other of the mistakes that they made. Like, well, this correct answer right here, I just didn't like the way that was worded, so I didn't pick it. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I understand why you didn't pick that. I understand why you got caught up in the wording of that answer and didn't like it. But let's talk about the other mistake you made, because I guarantee you didn't get caught up enough in the wording of the wrong answer that you picked. Like, you didn't like this answer because of some perceived imperfection, but I guarantee you picked an answer that's worse. So making one of those mistakes, you don't necessarily have to miss the question, because you could have said, oh, that answer, I don't like that answer because it's weird and I'm worried about that word. But that doesn't mean you just then blindly pick some other garbage answer. You have to be equally critical of the answer that you're actually going to pick. So look at both of those mistakes, not just one of them. I guarantee you that there was something conclusively wrong about the answer you picked that didn't give you a point. So, and one maybe thing to remember is that in the minds of the test makers, the correct answers are perfect. Okay, the correct answers make perfect sense for the test makers, and the wrong answers are perfectly wrong in the minds of the test makers. So when you're reviewing each individual mistake, think about why the right answer is right, think about why the wrong answer is wrong, and remember, you do have to be generous enough with the one correct answer. You have to be generous enough of your interpretation with that answer to make it 100% correct. You have to feel good about it. It has to click. And so what I think is you didn't do that on the wrong answer that you picked, or you just like weren't critical enough of it. You kind of just like blindly picked it, and you were like hypercritical of the right answer that you didn't pick. I don't know. I hope that's helpful. I just want to make sure that you're looking at both of those mistakes, not just one of them. And then also take the longer view of your scores. Just don't really worry about data points this week or next week or over the course of a month. Sometimes people do show improvement in a month, but other times, if you're showing up, if you're working hard, if you're doing the questions, and if you're asking the right questions of your teachers, and if you're reviewing properly, I guarantee you're making progress, even if it's not immediately reflected in your scores.